You're listening to Wealth at Work, a show designed to help advisors think, make decisions, and cast a vision to create a business for the future. Hosted by financial planner, author, speaker, and CEO of Advisor2X, Ross Marino.
Hello, Jeff. How's it going today?
Great, Ross. How are you doing?
I am good. Looking forward to your session. I saw the title of the session, and I'm not going to say what that is right at this moment. We can lead up to it, but it's exactly the kind of things I was talking about. But I know that you're way deeper than just the title and what you're going to talk about. You're someone that can really articulate the evolution of the industry and of the advisor. And you're going to talk about the third evolution. So how about we start talking about the evolution of the industry and the advisor?
Sure. So I've been in the business, as I like to say, 120 some thousand hours, and that's 40 years of being a workaholic if you're trying to do the math in your head. But way back when I was much younger, I was looking for a prospecting method, and I came into the basically insurance business in 1979. And then this new thing came up in the early 80s, 1982 to be specific for me, called a 401k. It was kind of a loophole in the tax code, and everybody say this is kind of a cool thing. And I needed a way to basically fish with a net instead of a pole for prospects. So I said, this looks good for me. So, and then it was all about product because there were no specialists. There wasn't an industry per se. It was just people that kind of glommed onto this loophole, if you will. So it's a matter of what product. I remember we were selling individual fixed annuity contracts as the funding vehicle, and going to people's houses to sign them up. So that was kind of the evolution number one. Then fast forward, and we started to have an industry with lots of money involved, and certain firms and people deciding, hey, this is really going somewhere, and they became specialists. And as you know, the 3 F's became the prevalent approach, basically, of what are your funds, what are your fees, and what are your fiduciary services. Today, that's the price of poker. I mean, if you don't provide all 3 of those, there's nothing to talk about. So where I think this third evolution is already taking place is really about outcomes and how do you move the needle. And I'm a huge fan of financial wellness, but sometimes it feels like financial wokeness. I mean, the advisor feels better about it than the participants do based on their utilization. So in this third evolution, I think everybody's trying to figure out how to create an elegantly integrated ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, you more holistically address the participants' needs. So ultimately, it's about being in the people business, not in the plan business. And that will depend a lot on your market segment. And I'm not in the mid to mega space. I'm in the micro, sometimes nano, but more the micro to small. That 97% of all employers in the United States have less than 500 employees. And we think for a plan to be successful, it's bottom up. And we also think it's not financial wellness, but it's actually delivering holistic financial planning in an independent, ubiquitous way with no geographic shifts. People move, people change jobs, and we want their planning to be the constant, no matter how many 401k plans they're involved with, over their career. So I think this next shift is back to the people business, which will bring some generalists back into play as opposed to just specialists. And those generalists are going to come from a lot of different directions, but many of them are going to come from being financial planners or those kind of financial advisor type approach. So I'm more excited about what the next 5 to 7 years holds, Ross, than any time in my career, because I think this is one of those, again, paradigm shifts that we will either be the beneficiary of or you'll be the victim of, because it's going to change whether you like it or not.
I definitely think it's a paradigm shift. And we have another conference that is called Shift that we'll be doing in 2023. And it's based on human first financial guidance. And that's really what the title of your session is. And that's what you just said. It's delineating that you're not just in the plan business, you're actually in the people business. And not just to say, and I told you this recently, that 10, 20 years ago, I would have said, oh, I'm in the people business because that's what everybody said. It was cliche, right? Well, I deal with people, so of course I'm in the people business, but that's really not what you're talking about with the third evolution. It sounds like when you say the people business, it means identifying that you're working with people and how do you help them where they're at in life and what is best for them at that moment. It's not just some black box or typical solution that you have for everybody. It's down to the individual level, but that takes time, it takes effort, it takes technology. How do you think advisors are going to do that?
So I can only really speak to what I know works for us because I do think it is scalable, number one, and you're able to replicate it depending on what your business model is. So in our particular case, I would call us a multidisciplinary practice. So when we're looking at what we do, there's financial planning, there's investment management, we do insurance work, but it's really everything you need to do to not only create the plan, but then to execute the plan. Because one of the knocks, so to speak, in financial planning is you gave me a great roadmap, but how do I execute this or take it to estate planning? How many times have we seen someone pay a lot of money to get their estate plan done, set up revocable living trusts, and never transfer any assets into the trust? And it becomes a worthless document at that particular point. So when we talk about it, we've really bought into the idea of the potential of, think of Teladoc here for a minute, but a virtual planning practice. And we've all gotten to the point where I don't want to drive across town, sit in a room with a bunch of sick people, wait to see a doctor for 7 minutes, get back in my car, drive back across, town, and then have my wife ask me, what'd they say, type thing. So COVID, for all the awfulness of COVID, because I lost a few family members in that process as well, but the benefit was it made us do what we've been thinking about doing and hope to get done over the next 5 years or 7 years. We had to get it done in 5 to 7 months from there. And then what we found out worked great. Everybody loved it from there. So we're using, when we talk about that bottom up, that participant service model, the concept of a virtual planning practice. We have CFPs and we have all the designations you need to act as a fiduciary at the participant level from there. And so we implemented that during COVID, and now we're finding people just want to stick with it. They don't want to necessarily go back to the one-on-one, see you at work type thing. And there's still a need for that. There's still group meetings. There's still good interaction. But we have a situation with, I'll take one client that once a month we call it Financial Independence Day, and it's all virtual. We go from 6 a.m. till 6 o'clock at night in 30-minute increments, and most of the people are trying to get on. In a lot of cases, their spouse is there. They're doing it from home. It's just more easier and more convenient without all the time drag of coming and going and those kind of things. So we're executing our participant service model, that way, from the bottom up, and we're finding it's more efficient. It's actually more effective. It's more inclusive because the spouse can be involved, and we have no geographic boundaries from there. We're, literally, it doesn't matter where you are anymore. And then I think the other part, Ross, that's really, really important, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. I was talking with a major record keeper, and they said, what do you think of our financial tools and wellness tools? And I said, I think they're great until they're worthless. And their comment was, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, let's assume I'm in your plan. I've used your tools. I've created, my roadmap, and now I change jobs and I transfer my money to my new employer or to an IRA. What do you do? He said, well, we turn you off. I said, yeah, it was great while it lasted, but now it's worthless to me, and I got to start all over again. So I think the autonomous nature of the delivery of these kind of services in a virtual setting, they can change jobs, they can move across the country, they can do anything they want, but you remain the constant through that particular process. And I just think the upside of that is far more scalable. I read somewhere where the number one hirer of CFPs was Vanguard. I can't attest that's true or not, but back to that virtual planning to wrap around, their mutual funds. It's, you can like it or not like it, but that's where it's going. And if you're not on board with that, somebody else is going to talk to your clients about it. So That's what I mean about being close. And you mentioned it in a way that I think is important. It's back to relationships. And now the relationship is more pronounced, it's deeper, it's more comprehensive in nature. And if someone says, look, my spouse doesn't get home till 7, or can you do Saturday morning? Or sure, no problem. That's easy to do. Everybody's happier as you go forward. And then you become the financial advisor to that family. And that's ultimately where things get really sticky, I guess.
Well, we've been talking about the convergence for years, and in my opinion, the acceleration right now is faster and stronger than it's ever been. So can't wait to see what comes next. Jeff, look forward to seeing you out in Las Vegas at Wealth at Work.
My pleasure, and I look forward to it, and then we will expand upon what we started today.
Thank you for listening to Wealth at Work. The information covered and posted represents the views of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Advisor 2X. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.